Hello, my name is Christopher Houston, and in this video, I want to discuss documenting feedback and having those crucial conversations. Joseph Graney, author of the book Crucial Conversation, was quoted saying, "At the core of every successful conversation lies the free flow of relevant information." I agree with that. There has to be a free flow of information, and there also has to be documentation of that free flow of information. In last week's video, I mentioned that there are 3 reasons to give feedback: to correct, to develop, and to reinforce. Documentation is key to the feedback process. A few months ago, a friend of mine asked me about my thoughts on documenting subpar behavior. He was going to give a presentation at a leadership conference and wanted my opinion. To document subpar behavior and to document feedback, I use email as the tool to store the information, and I use a 3-step process. The 3 steps are initial conversation, document the conversation via email, and the crucial conversation. The question I usually get is, what is the difference between the initial conversation and the crucial conversation? The initial conversation involves a lot of listening and clarifying objectives. The crucial conversation involves letting someone know their behavior is substandard and cannot be tolerated. Now let's get into the 3 steps. Step 1 is the initial conversation. In this conversation, I listen and make sure I understand the situation. If we are having this conversation because something did not go right, I apologize for not giving the process or project enough attention. I let the person know if there are any barriers that I can remove, we can discuss. And I will make sure those barriers are taken care of. Then I continue to listen to all the reasons the person has for not completing the task. I make sure I listen intently, let them speak, I nod my head as I'm listening, and most important, I empathize with the challenges they are laying out. It's called active listening. Next is step 2, documenting the conversation in an email. Documentation is key in this process. Don't you hate it when you hear a boss, supervisor, or manager say things like this? You are always late, or you never complete a tasking on time, or every time I give you something to do, it's below standards. Vague and ambiguous accusations usually cause arguments and challenge any relationship, especially the supervisor-subordinate relationship. This is why documenting the conversation is so important. You must document in a way that is easily retrievable. To do this, I use the term per our conversation in the subject line of the email. After the per our conversation statement in the subject line, I type the title of the meeting. I try to use the title that is 8 words or less. For example, per our conversation, project task 5 was not completed on time. Following this step helps with cataloging and retrieval of the message for later discussions. Then in the body of the email, I will put a specific detailed information about the tasking and exactly what I want to get accomplished. Sometimes I will put the exact steps on how to accomplish the tasking. We want to make sure that the person has a good blueprint of exactly what needs to be accomplished and exactly what is expected. I also address any barriers that will be discussed. I address what should be done regarding these barriers. And I would like to be contacted immediately if a barrier impedes the completion of any tasking. I make sure I send the email as soon as the conversation is over, no more than 48 hours after the conversation. For me, since it's fresh in my mind, I try to send the email right after the conversation or later on that same day. Let me guess, you're thinking to yourself, Chris, I don't have time to send an email every time I speak to someone. I'm not talking about sending an email every time you have a conversation. You have that initial conversation when the behavior is subpar or taskings are not getting completed per a specific standard. Remember, your goal here is to correct, develop, or reinforce. And by the way, if you are a manager or supervisor and you say things like, I don't have time to develop, correct, or reinforce your subordinates, you may be in over your head. If you are thinking, I shouldn't have to provide that much information, or that's a lot of work, Think about it this way. These steps help out immensely when you have to sit down with someone later and have a crucial conversation regarding their performance. Lastly is step 3, the crucial conversation. Step 2, when done correctly, makes step 3 easy. The reason these conversations are perceived as difficult is because most people don't know how to document their previous conversations. Taking time to provide feedback and document conversation puts the person on notice. I have watched individuals let subpar behavior go on for months or even years. They let it go on until they get angry, and then they want to severely discipline the person after one incident. And a lot of times with no documentation. That does not work, and you can ask any HR representative. In step 3, the person is still not getting the job done, and you have to have a crucial conversation. Once you get into the meeting with the person, you bring up the per our conversation email, and you make it so both you guys are looking at it. The entire conversation revolves around speaking about the email and what is still not going on. It is important to bring up the per our conversation email because you both need to be sitting there looking at it. Using WebEx is great since we're in these times. You can bring it up in WebEx and have your screen showing, and then you both can talk about it. Then you say, you were tasked with completing X by the 10th of the month, and you did not complete those tasks. The person is either going to give you an excuse or own up to not getting the job done. I focus on the infraction and not the excuse. I let the person know that this cannot continue and we may need to take further steps. I am not concerned with sob stories or someone saying they did not have enough time. Remember, we listened and empathized and removed barriers in step 1. This is a crucial conversation because at the end of the conversation, the person may be receiving a formal letter of counseling or letter of reprimand or some other type of corrective measure. Having these conversations are challenging. However, when you sign up to be in a supervisory role, you must be able to have these conversations. In this video, we have discussed the 3-step process of documenting feedback and how it helps with having these crucial conversations. The 3 steps are: number 1, the initial conversation. Step 2, document the conversation via email. Number 3, the crucial conversation. I hope you found value in this video. If you did, please subscribe, like, and leave comments. Also, if you think someone you know can benefit from this information, please send a link to that person. I post a video every Saturday. My name is Christopher Houston. Thank you very much. Good night and God bless.